It's my absolute pleasure to welcome everybody here, but the most important person is this week, obviously, our esteemed star, who is Dr. Sarah Botto. Welcome, Sarah. Sarah is a developmental psychologist, and she's a professor at Emory University here in Atlanta. And we are delighted to have you with us. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So we're all looking forward to learning a little bit more about what being a psychologist is about. And so a good place to start is to find out a little bit about you and what you like to do. So maybe take you all the way back to your elementary school. What was your favorite subject at school?
Yeah, so surprisingly, my favorite subject growing up was math, because I thought it was like a puzzle for everyone. So I really enjoyed the math. So very different from what I do now.
And so you went on then to pursue maths further up in your high school career, or did you change subjects?
Yeah, no. So in high school, I kind of took all of the, different subjects, but it wasn't until college when I went to the University of Georgia. So if anyone is from Georgia, I'm a Dogs fan, and that's where I studied psychology.
Okay, so how did you choose your college? What led you to the University of Georgia?
Well, so I grew up in Georgia, and based on how well you do in high school, if you're in Georgia, they give you a full ride if you choose to stay in Georgia and you go to a school in Georgia. So given that the University of Georgia is a really great school, it was really close from home, and it was basically a full ride, I kind of decided that was probably the best choice for me. And it made my parents very happy that I stayed close by.
Yeah, I think as a parent with children at the University of Georgia, I definitely appreciate that as well. So when you got to college, did you know exactly that you wanted to do psychology, or did you have a feel around and do some other subjects?
Yeah, so I was in between pharmacy or psychology. I thought about pharmacy because I thought it would be a little more stable, and they say that it's a good job and it's a little bit easier to get a job. So I was very pragmatic as a freshman, surprisingly, as a little 18-year-old. But then I took a psychology class, and I just completely fell in love because it was the first class I ever took where the topic was about learning about myself. Psychology is the study of our behavior, of our mind, of how it is that we become the person we are, why we behave certain ways in particular situations, or think in particular ways. So when that got introduced to me, I was like, this is amazing. I loved the topic, and that's when I decided to kind of continue. So I think there's also a lot of misconceptions. Even though I majored in psychology, I actually didn't exactly know what psychologists did. So I'm kind of curious as to what people think psychologists do or what their role is. So maybe we should ask them what they think. What do you think, Lorna?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So we do actually have a poll lined up for you. So viewers, Mr. Mike, our question master, he is going to launch the poll. So if you'd like to respond to the question is, what do you think psychologists do? So you've got some choices. You just click on one, and then as soon as we have all of your answers, we'll be able to find out what psychologists really do. Okay, so you've got about 10 more seconds, I think, and then we'll see. Okay, so I think we can end the poll there. Mike? Okay, right. So Mike, would you like to share the results with us?
Sure, yeah, it looks like the winner was all of the above, with a little bit of voting for help people understand how they're feeling.
We have very smart people then. Yeah, so I feel like when people think about psychologists, you're thinking of a traditional therapist, right? That sits with someone and helps them understand their feelings better or helps them through a hard time. But in fact, psychologists do so much more or can do a lot of different things. So that includes teaching college students, which is what I do. That includes doing research or designing experiments to figure out questions that you're interested in, which I also do. You can also help people. So there's a wide variety of things that you can do with psychology, which is why I think it's such a wonderful field to go into.
So you actually went on, I believe, and you earned a PhD. Could you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, so after my 4 years at the University of Georgia, I knew that I wanted to pursue psychology. And in order for you to have the most options available to you as a psychologist, they encourage you to pursue a PhD. So PhD is the highest degree that you can get, and it takes about 4 to 6 years, depending on your research, to get a PhD. So I basically applied to different places, and I found that Emory University had a professor who did the type of research that really interested me. So he studied self-consciousness in children, meaning that he studied when kids begin to understand who they are and how other people see them. And so because of that, I chose to get at Emory University. I studied there for 6 years, and I just graduated actually in May from my bedroom because of COVID. So I defended my thesis from my bedroom. It was quite interesting. And now here we are. So now I teach undergraduate students, and it's so much fun. I love teaching. I've always loved teaching. But then I also get to, continue researching and asking questions that are really interesting to me. So even though psychologists can do a wide range of different things, I think research is the most intriguing one, because researchers are the only people that have the privilege to create knowledge. A lot of different careers, they learn from textbooks and, they get trained, which is wonderful. But researchers are the ones creating the knowledge in those textbooks, which I think is incredibly powerful. So that's why I thought it was so cool to continue doing research as well as teaching.
So you obviously gained a lot of knowledge, and you have become very practiced and experienced as a researcher. But what qualities do you think you really need to be a researcher or a good researcher?
Yeah, so like anything worth anything in this life, it takes effort, right? You have to be responsible and you have to put effort into your studies, but then it also takes some curiosity. So I think that's probably one of the most defining characteristics of researchers, is that they're so curious that they want to go find the answer for themselves. So in fact, we can kind of practice what it might be like to be a researcher. So Lorna, do you have anything you're curious about?
Well, I quite like ice cream, and it's often puzzled me what the favorite ice cream is. I have a few preferences, but and I think I know what might be the most popular ice cream. But maybe we could do a poll now to find out to find out a little bit more about favorite ice cream. So what do we need to do before we ask people? Is there a stage that we might have to take?
Yes. So in research, you first have a question, right? So your question, Lorna, is what is the most popular ice cream? Let's say in the United States, since that's where we're at, right? So then you create a prediction or a hypothesis. And a hypothesis is basically what you think the answer is. So what would be your hypothesis? If I were to ask you, do you think vanilla or chocolate is the most popular ice cream flavor? What do you predict? What do you think is the right answer?
I think that chocolate is the favorite ice cream flavor.
Okay, so your hypothesis would include your prediction. So you think that chocolate is the right answer. And it would also include what kind of evidence you would need to support that prediction. So you would ask, your hypothesis would look something like, if chocolate is the favorite flavor of ice cream in America, then more people will vote for chocolate than vanilla when we launch the poll. So we want to be very specific about what it is we're expecting to happen in the context of this study. And what's cool is that this right here, Lorna, is what researchers do. It's a study that we're doing. We're using a poll or a survey to collect data from people. So do we want to put that into practice?
Yeah, I think we've got Mike ready again with our second poll. Right, so there you go. So the question is, between vanilla and chocolate, which flavor of ice cream is your favorite? Oh, look, the answers are coming in. Wow. I actually don't get to vote, but okay, well, this is interesting. So what are the results, Mr. Mike?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, actually vanilla is winning with about 70% of the vote.
Wow! So what does that mean, Lorna? Were the results supporting your hypothesis or rejecting your hypothesis?
Well, I guess my hypothesis was rejected on the basis of results. I don't know.
But you know what? That's okay, because what that means is that you can design more studies or give more polls or test more people in order to continue learning more about why people like vanilla over chocolate. So even if your hypothesis rejected, so to speak, it just gives you an opportunity to keep being curious. So it's okay.
I am definitely curious, actually. And I think I might, next time if I was doing the poll, would it be a good idea to change the people that I asked and get different results? How do you manage that? Do you work out a different set of people to ask the questions to?
Yeah, so when we do studies, we collect a sample. So right now our sample's very small, right? So we wouldn't necessarily think that the answers that we got from this poll might generalize or apply to the entire population of the United States, which is what we're interested in. So next time when we launch this poll, or when you do this poll again, Lorna, you would want to get more people, because you want your sample size to be big enough so that whatever results you get, we assume that you can apply it to other people and that it reflects the opinion of the United States as a whole. So yes, next time, let's just get more people.
Yeah, let's get the whole of the United States to get an opinion on ice cream. Okay, so I'm sort of guessing that ice cream's not the main focus of your research. What do you ask questions about and make hypotheses about?
So what I'm really interested about, because I think it applies to a lot of people, including kids, is when, why, and how we care so much about what other people think of us. So has anyone here ever had stage fright or gotten nervous when giving, a speech to people? Anyone got nervous? I get nervous. Yes, exactly. So a lot of people have experienced this worry whenever they are going to perform. And the reason why you feel nervous is because as humans, we all care about what other people think of us to some extent. So I wanted to explore when children, at what age, begin to start caring or considering how other people might evaluate them. And so what I do is I design studies just like we did here, Lorna, but I do them with children. And because I test children, I actually design games. And that is how my experiments look like. So I designed this game and I brought 2-year-olds into my laboratory. And I basically showed them how to play with a robot by pressing one of 2 remotes. So I would press one remote and the robot would spin in circles. And then I would press another remote and the robot would move back and forth. But importantly, whenever I would press one button, I would say, yay, that's great. So I would give like a positive feedback about this robot moving in this direction. And then when I pressed the other remote, I would say, oops, oh no. So it was an undesirable, more of a negative value of this robot moving this particular way. And then I invited the children, the 2-year-olds, to play with both remotes, and they could play with whatever they wanted. But I either looked at them or I turned my back and pretended like I wasn't paying attention. And what we found is that by the age of 2, children would choose to play with the remote where I acted happy pressing it more often when I was watching them. But then they were so sneaky and they would choose to pick up the remote that I had said, oops, oh no, once I had turned my back. So clearly they can distinguish by the age of 2 how you respond to particular objects or situations, so like your opinions towards things, and they use that information to modify their behavior depending on who's watching. So to me, that was so cool, right? Because at the age of 2, kids can't even have complete sentences, right? They're so young. So that was what my research entails. And now I'm trying to figure out the kind of factors that contribute to people or kids caring more or less about what other people think of them.
So I was just curious as to whether your hypotheses are normally correct or rejected when
I don't know. Should I say this here? So with this one, this particular study I did, I had expected the kids to change their behavior by the age of 2 just because of the knowledge they already have by the age of 2. But that doesn't always happen, which is okay. Because remember, when a hypothesis is rejected, it just means you get to do more studies to figure things out.
Exactly. Well, actually, I think we've got quite a few questions coming into the chat. So I think this is a great time to open up to the chat. And whilst we're asking the questions that are there, if anybody else has got any questions they'd like to write in the chat, we have our question master, Mr. Mike, who is going to ask Sarah your question. So, Mr. Mike, do we have a question for Sarah?
Awesome. Yeah, I got a few good ones here. So first question that came in, somebody was wondering if there's a particular population you like working with best. For example, like a particular age within the kids or teenagers or...
Yes, my favorite is kids. And the reason why is because all my studies are games. So in the infant and child lab at Emory, if you are in Atlanta, or even if you're in another state, we have a lot of studies that we do online. You can help scientists and do research. So usually we just ask you to play a short game with us. A lot of the times when you come into the lab, you get to pick a prize. So I love testing children because we're just playing games, we're doing science and learning about development, and kids love coming. So I know we have a link too where parents, if they're interested in that, in getting joining research, or kids are interested in helping scientists, you can click on the link and you can help us learn more about child development.
All right, excellent. One other question, back when you were talking about the hypothesis thing, somebody thought of that. So do the studies ever turn out differently than you think they will? So are you ever wrong with your hypothesis?
So in some instances, yes. The things I find surprise me. So even though I kind of expected children in the study I mentioned to act differently, I didn't expect it to be so obvious and to find it in so many kids that they would actually do that. So yeah, a lot of the times it's surprising what I find, but that's what's fun about research. You never know what you're going to find, and you just keep learning.
Excellent. All right, and then someone else asked, so when you study psychology in college, what do you need to know ahead of time? Like, are there certain classes you need to take in grade school and high school to be
No.
ready?
Nothing. That's what's so cool in psychology. So I teach Introduction to Psychology, which is the most basic class for psychology in college. And I basically assume that you have no background, and I teach it in a way that you can understand, and you don't need to take any classes before. So you don't really need any background.
Excellent. All right, and then speaking of teaching in college, so what's it like to teach college students? Do you think, is it different than like regular kids?
I can imagine. I have a lot of respect for teachers that teach elementary school, middle school, and high school because they teach like all day, where when you're in college, your schedule is very flexible. I get to teach whenever I want to teach, and I only teach 2 days a week, and that's considered full-time. So benefits of being a professor: you get to pick your schedule and you have a lot of flexibility. So teaching college students is really fun because they're, curious and they're smart and they engage with the material a lot. But I'm sure teaching other grades is super fun too.
Okay, excellent. Then we had a serious question come in with all the challenges and all the changes because of COVID, with people learning from home or staying at home so much. Do you think there'll be any effects, either good or bad, on kids after it's all passed?
That's an excellent question. And I think it's too soon to kind of know what the effects might be. I do know that researchers are actually asking that exact question, and they're collecting data in order for us to find out what are the effects of learning from home. So we don't know yet, but I'm sure stay tuned because those studies are ongoing right now, trying to figure out. What we do know is learning from a screen is not the same as learning in person and it being a little more reciprocal. So although learning is going to take place, we do know from other studies that in-person learning is the best.
Interesting. All right, and then speaking of other research questions, where someone was also curious, have you ever studied like when parents are working on their cell phones or spending time on their cell phones while their kids are around with them? What does that do for the kids? Is that good or bad, or what do you think on that?
Well, so I haven't done studies on cell phones and parents, but what I do know is that children learn a lot by copying the behavior of those around them, and they also pick up on what is important or what is valuable based on how they observe their parents interact. So when parents are on their phones a lot, you might expect the child to kind of get the information that the phone's important and it's valuable. And they might be more likely to want to play with the phone because they're observing you play with the phone, right? So they're smart and they learn by observing. So I think that might be one of the effects is the child will probably want to play with the phone because you're communicating to them that this is worth your time.
Excellent. Interesting. All right, then here's maybe an easier question. So those are tricky ones. So nice job on that.
They're good ones.
For that, someone else was curious, did you ever have to publish your findings, like write reports and stuff? And how's it different for you, like compared to like kids in grade school or something like that?
Yeah, so the reason why we do research is because we want to share it with the public, right? We don't want to keep this information in. When we find an answer, we don't want to keep it to ourselves, right? We want to share it so people can learn from what we find. So whenever you do a study and you collect all of the information, you write it and you publish it. So you submit it to a publisher and they publish your article so that other people can read it. That being said, when we write scientific articles, they can sometimes be difficult to understand because we use very specific language. So I'm really passionate about sharing science in a way that people can understand and even kids can understand, because sometimes it can be a little hard to understand those articles. But yes, I publish my findings and it entails a lot of writing. So I guess if you want to pursue a PhD in psychology or in anything, because you want to publish your findings, writing is a good skill to develop.
Interesting. All right, good. And a broad question. Do you think kids today are any different than they were like 30 or 50 years ago? Have they changed at all, like because of all the technology or just the world being different somehow?
Perhaps. So there has been some studies, but more with adolescents in how social media in particular is affecting mental health. And we know that there are some negative effects of social media in adolescents. But in terms of younger kids and how maybe the use of technology has affected them, there isn't actually enough data or enough information or studies to come to a conclusion, because it's a fairly new phenomena in order for us to make a really strong claim about how technology is changing child development. But I'm sure more studies are being done, and who knows? It's a great question.
Interesting. All right, and then since we've been talking to people or mentioned that they could get involved with research with your group there, so what's that like? Like what happens when people sign up for that?
Yeah, so what happens when you sign up to be part of the Child Study Center is that whenever there's a study that is looking for kids of a particular age, so let's say we're looking for 7-year-olds or 10-year-olds, we simply send you an email and we say there's a study available that is looking for 8-year-old children. Would you and your child be interested in participating? And you can say yes or no. You pick what time is convenient for you and what day. And then you either log on a computer and play for 20 minutes, or you come into the lab, depending on how the situation is with COVID. And we just play games. You get to pick a prize, and that's it. It's very simple. Labs also send newsletter that tells you the findings of the study. So parents also get to learn, what kind of studies their children participated in. So it's really fun, it's really short, it's really simple. And if you're interested in research as a child, this is a great step for you to get involved and see what it's like.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. All right, good. Now, one other question came in. Do you think you'll ever write a book someday?
That's a good question. I don't know. I like speaking more than I like writing. So maybe not a book, but perhaps maybe some YouTube videos down the line. We'll see.
Awesome. We'll hear you on a TED Talk or something someday.
I already did a TED Talk.
Oh, awesome. Oh, cool. Congratulations. All right, cool.
What was your TED Talk on then? What did you
It was on the research I shared today. So it was called, I think, When Do Children Begin to Care About What Others Think might be the title. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, maybe we can find that and see hear more from you about this, because I love the way that you are so passionate about it, and that is a great thing to be in any career that you are in, really, for the rest of your working life. So you have brought to us your passion and lots of great words, hypotheses, and data and knowledge, and I think the way that you have told us that you create knowledge, that is wonderful. So as a result of your research, you actually create new information, and that is something that the world will obviously need and continue to need for a very long time. So
yes,
you're obviously doing a great job in your research.
Thank you. And I can't wait for, hopefully I have encouraged people to be a little more curious about doing research in psychology, that they can also begin to, to pursue their curiosity.
Well, hopefully you will have inspired many of the people watching. And as we said, if they'd like to get involved, the link is talent-island.com/child-study-center if they would like to sign up and maybe come and play some games with you and learn a lot more about what it is like to be a developmental psychologist
yes, that's right.
at Emory University, but wherever they might choose to study in the future. So thank you very much, Sarah, Dr. Sarah Botto from the Emory University, for being our STEAM star today. I would like to also just tell everybody watching that we have our next STEAM star coming up on Wednesday, December the 2nd at 5 p.m. Eastern. And we will be talking to Kelsey Newton, who is a software engineer with Microsoft. So we are looking forward to hearing all about her work with computers, coding, and video games. So more fun and learning and understanding about another STEAM career. So thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you all again in the future. Thanks for joining us.